Gagan and you're listening to the Voice of Insurance podcast, produced in association with Advantage Go, enabling an enterprise view of exposure. Today's guest is a living example of the London market being a place where global talent can come and enjoy a varied and fulfilling career that doesn't have a glass ceiling. He arrived in London over 30 years ago as a risk engineer and now oversees insurance businesses writing over $2.5 billion in premiums and employing around 400 people. Luis Prato is president of Liberty Specialty Markets in the UK and Middle East and North Africa, as well as being CEO of a Liberty Managing Agency at Lloyd's. Because he's an engineer by training, he's exceptional in his grasp of the technical side of underwriting and insurance operations. But he's extremely well-rounded and has absorbed and internalised the culture of personal relationships and mutual trust that underpins the London subscription market and allows it to keep reinventing itself. Luis instinctively knows that outperformance in underwriting is a combination of both science and art. He has the engineer's analytical mindset to bring rigour and structure to his methods, but also knows that if change comes at the expense of the people who make the market what it is, it won't succeed. So, as the market simultaneously softens, digitises, and adopts AI and varying degrees of automation, this is a compelling and highly relevant conversation that brings us right up to date. Luis is optimistic about the immediate, medium, and long-term prospects for the London market. And after listening to someone as technically gifted, credible, and down-to-earth as he is, talking in these terms, I think you will be too. Enjoy the podcast. Luis, welcome to the Voice of Insurance.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
It's really good to be here. It's a bit of a misty day, but we're in a beautiful office in the centre of London, looking out over the Thames. For anyone who doesn't know you, Luis, why don't you briefly run us through your career, how you got to this position that you're in now today, and obviously give us the origin story. How did you get into insurance as well?
Well, it's a good story. The first thing you'll notice as soon as I start talking is I do have a Spanish accent. That's because I'm originally from Venezuela. I studied engineering in my native Caracas, and it was during my studies that I discovered insurance, accidentally actually. I needed to earn a bit of money to help me with my studies, and I worked part-time for a local insurance company.
What was the name of it? I'm trying to remember some early treaty work I might have done, or I'm going to pick up some lines on the names of them.
It was Seguros Mercantil.
I think it rings a bell, Yeah.
So I was doing risk engineering work for them, but of the easiest kind. So I'd visit anything from a shoe shop to a small factory, checking for sprinklers and fire extinguishers.
So much more sort of standard property. Because with Venezuela, obviously, everyone in the London market, the first thing they think of is PDVSA, the state oil company.
Of course, and I eventually ended up there, like most Venezuelan engineers. And I did a year with them during my studies as well. So that's like a placement year. But that was my first contact with insurance, and frankly, I loved it. To the point that as soon as I finished my engineering degree, I decided that was the industry I wanted to work in. So what made it all possible was the fact that, luckily for me, as I finished my studies, I was offered a scholarship to study any postgraduate course anywhere in the world. It was a government grant. And when you're 21 years of age and you get given that opportunity, it's like winning the lottery, you can imagine, right? So I decided, right, I'm going to go to the Mecca of Insurance, London. And I've been here since.
Never went home?
Never been back. I've been here since the early 90s, yeah.
Wow. Well, yes, we were probably rubbing shoulders up and down Lime Street then.
Indeed.
Around that time.
Indeed.
So in that London market career, then you've worked at various places. Always been on the underwriting side?
No, I actually started as an engineer. So following my transition to full-on engineering, I worked for IRI as a risk engineer for a number of years.
IRI, yes. No,
that's right.
Yeah, well, you used to write a lot of oil and gas.
That's right. It was a great school and very technical. It was one of those insurance companies that was run from the engineering department rather than underwriting.
Yes, it was Jim Bryce.
That's right.
Him, yes.
Exactly right. And then, of course, IRI eventually folded because one thing they did not do well was manage their aggregates, and one big refinery fire and ended up being a terminal for the organization. What I did take from them was an awful lot of learning and good friends, which I still keep to this day. So I did that for a number of years. Then I became, of all things, a marketer. I was in distribution with Zurich Global Energy in 1998 when Bob Golden set up the first satellite specialist unit of the Zurich Group for energy. And my job was, with the grand title of managing director, to market energy-specific product into the Latin American region, which was great fun. And the distribution for me was actually a learned skill. Engineers don't normally gravitate to that sort of job. Sales is not something that normally comes natural to an engineer. But
No.
But I loved it.
But it's nice. It's nice to have a view of the other side of it.
Exactly right. And again, I learned a lot from it. You'll see there's a theme to the conversation today. I'm a serial learner. I like it that way. So that was my first contact to the sales side of the house. The way Zurich Global Energy was structured, combined with the fact that anybody that was here will remember the early 90s were a very tough time for insurers. It was a very soft market, meant that Bob Golding decided that the distribution structure that he had placed was not actually optimal. So he did away with it. He was kind enough to offer me an alternative position as an underwriter. And that's how I became an underwriter with Zurich Global Energy back then.
So energy.
Energy was my specialism. I spent best part of 2 decades underwriting energy. And of course, with time, my remit expanded to include other specialty classes. And eventually, in the late teens with AXA XL, I grew from head of energy to head of specialty to active underwriter to CEO. And then 2 years ago, I joined Liberty as the president for the UK EMEA region, as well as the CEO of Liberty's managing agency at Lloyd's.
Right. So we're right up to date.
Indeed.
Yes. So forgive me for this because Liberty is such a large organization.
It is.
If you can run us through the part of Liberty, obviously we know it's the Lloyd's and managing agent, but yes, run us through exactly the bits that are under your control.
Sure. So Liberty is indeed a global company. It is also a mutual, and it's very unusual for a mutual to be this large and certainly to be this large and global. So we are, if not the only one of the very few.
Yes, it probably is the largest global mutual, isn't it? In that sense, certainly in the P&C world.
Indeed.
Because, yes, probably a business like State Farm is bigger, or could be bigger. It's so enormous, but it's
more local.
It's very local,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. So, something like 55%, I don't know the exact figures, but of the total Liberty income globally of order magnitudes, about $50 billion US. More than half is in the US market. It's a personal lines, consumer business. The balance is what we call GRS, or Global Risk Solutions.
Yeah.
And that is predominantly corporate and large commercial business all over the world and in the US. That part also has a retail component part in APAC. So what I respond for in the UK EMEA region is 3 markets, essentially. So it's the London wholesale market, it's the Dubai wholesale market, and also a UK domestic proposition. The sum of all these 3 parts is $2.5 billion.
Wow.
And we underwrite on 2 platforms, so the syndicate and also we have company paper. Our paper here is a branch of our European domiciled company. So the syndicate houses for us, it's roughly half of the premium in the syndicate is our insurance business. The other half is reinsurance. So as you can see, I wear 2 hats as the president of the region, also CEO of the syndicate. Depending on which hat I'm wearing, I respond for different parts of the organization.
And how many people is that?
So the team that I lead in terms of the regional proposition is about 400 people. And that vast majority of those people are here in the London office in 20 Fenchurch Street. We do have a small regional network of offices, and by small I mean small. So we have an office in Bristol, an office in Manchester, and one office in Dublin, and of course Dubai, as I just mentioned. So the first 3 offices of those are the ones that we use for the production of regional domestic business. Whereas Dubai, as I said, it helps us cater for the regional Middle Eastern wholesale market.
So how do you want to be perceived as a business? When you're going to market, or when a broker's walking up and down Lime Street and they're thinking about you, what do you want them to be thinking about? Specifically, do you want to think of you as being a real specialist in certain things, or somebody you could go to with almost anything?
Well, there are things we already are that we would like to keep being. One of them is being recognized for expertise and leadership. Another one is we are a company that even from the outside is recognized for being very good around people. And by that, I mean everybody. So not just us employees of the company, but also our trading partners, our clients. And I don't know if it's a function of us being a mutual, probably certainly a contributing factor. But now that I'm on the inside, I can attest to the fact that we are really different around the way we think about business, because every decision we make, high up on the list of factors to consider is the impact on the people. And that's a great thing. So that we want to preserve. We're very cognizant that the market is evolving quickly around us. And the role of carriers, the role of brokers, the role of the market as an infrastructure is actually changing and changing fast. So it's an opportunity for us to reflect and think what we want to keep being and we want to be new. So we want to continue to be leaders in the market, creating value through our underwriting, not at the expense of being a great place to work at. But we also want to be part of this new movement that tries to incorporate new systems, processes, and tools to the benefit of the market as well as ourselves as a carrier.
So you want to be seen as being sort of progressive in that sense.
And innovative. We do get a lot of good press and good recognition, credit for the work we do in innovation. And I think there's a lot more we can do.
It's a good time to talk about it then, because actually it's one of the recent announcements you've made is that you're getting into the smart follow business.
Yeah, indeed. So we've been exploring as to what the art of the possible from a smart follow and algorithm perspective. And at the moment, the steps we're taking are baby steps. They are experimental, but there's something deep in us that believes that parts of the business that we have traditionally underwritten in the open market using traditional methods and nothing other than traditional methods is ripe now to accept some degree of automation. I'm going to stop short of saying full automation, because I don't think much of what we do is actually ready for that. But this thing of expediting the ingestion of data, the processing of data, the supporting of the decisions made by underwriters or claims for that matter, is a thing. I think there's potential there. We are exploring, we set up a brand new unit for algorithmic. We don't have enormous expectations of it in terms of income. We're not thinking about it in terms of, let's put X number of dollars on the plan. Of course, we have something to, if nothing else, keep us incentivized. But to us, it's more about being up to date, being at the forefront of the learning so that we can actually lead the market, help the market lead itself into positions of advantage for our clients and for the market itself.
Yes, it's not something you're putting a lot of pressure on to say, right, we want 10% of our business to be going through this by...
Absolutely not. I mean, and who is to say what the optimal distribution is or allocation of businesses between traditional versus automated or algorithmic? I think the market will decide that over time. But as I say, there's something that we strongly believe that says at least some of what we do today can be done differently, can be done more optimally by adopting, to an extent, algorithmic methods.
Again, and that frees up your underwriters to go and lead.
Absolutely.
One presumes the dynamics of the market might change, that if you're just not going to be shown as much unless you are a leader, in which case then I suppose things will become obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. And so even if you don't use algorithmic, this thing of adopting digital as an approach to the market is becoming a must, even for those that remain solely in the open market leadership space. Because our brokers are telling us if you want access to our data, to our business, you need to be able to take it, and they're offering it digitally. So we need to adopt those.
I had a podcast with Anthony Siggers, who's head of digital for Marsh, and obviously that's a very significant player at Marsh in the London market. And it's sort of all going to be APIs, JSON files, which I didn't know what they were, I had to go and look it up. But, effectively everyone getting connected. So you don't have to send anybody anything. You just kind of open the gate and then you can see everything they want you to see without having to sort of get an email or anything.
When you think about it, just strip it to the fundamentals, the potential is enormous. So if you take into account the amount of time, effort, and money we spend on just processing stuff, moving thoughts, ideas, data around, and then packaging it and storing it and shipping it out, it's an enormous amount of work that we can expedite by simply agreeing on, first of all, some standard as to what's needed for the market to tick along, and then allowing all of that flow to happen digitally. Then we can concentrate, if you're a carrier, in the creation of risk insights, and then with that, products and solutions and speed and all the things that the market demands of us. If you're a broker, you can spend your time optimizing your carrier set. Again, helping your clients find the best solution for their particular risk needs.
You can go out and sell more insurance.
That's right.
Get more clients, be out at more conferences and capture more business and bring it here, because you know that actually the doing it doesn't take so long.
Exactly right. Exactly. And one of the things that we observe that might be quite exciting for the next 5 or even 10 years is seeing how the distribution landscape is changing. From the London market, we've always had access to just about every corner of the world, or we thought so anyway. Equally, we thought we had a pretty broad set of products to work with. Now, through technology and new tools, and new data sets and so on, we recognize that we actually can absorb even business that to us seemed off bounds, retail business in faraway corners of the world.
Yeah.
It's all becoming possible.
Yeah, because there was always that London broker's minimum premium That was the first barrier, wasn't it? If it didn't get over that, they had to sort of basically throw it straight in the bin and say, sorry, guys, we can't market this risk because we can't make any money.
The reason for a minimum premium to exist is transacting business in London is expensive. It certainly has been very expensive traditionally. And again, through technology and new processes.
I don't think Zurich or New York or anywhere else is that cheap either.
No, but for us to be able to compete with retail, with local market, we do need to be able to create efficiencies that we've never lived with before.
So do you think we can really grow the London market?
I certainly believe so, yes.
Obviously, it'd be nice to employ some more people and have more opportunity for people. But at the same time, if we double the London market from 100 billion to 200 billion, one would hope we wouldn't have to double the headcount.
Completely. And the whole point of having an aspiration to grow the market is because we really believe that we can provide an increasing set of solutions to an increasing set of markets without increasing cost, in fact, by reducing cost. That's what would make us competitive.
If we get to a point where things are really frictionless, we might have a very different kind of market where you might not even need a treaty, for example. I don't know. There's something I often think about. I wonder if everything could be facultative.
Yeah. And so in a frictionless world, yes, that would be possible. In reality, insurance, as far as I can tell, will continue to be regulated, very heavily regulated.
I suppose people want the certainty of knowing I've got that treaty for another 12 months, even if it's sometimes actually not very efficient because it's a new treaty and it's a new line and the income's not what it was supposed to be. And then there's a minimum deposit premium. And I've been a broker in those sort of situations. You get to sort of 6 months in and have a quite apologetic word with the reinsurer and say, I'm sorry, guys, there's really not the income here. So can we have a quiet word about this minimum deposit?
Exactly right. Exactly right. But philosophically, when I think about the direction of travel of the market and so on, God knows where the pieces will land once the market finds a new steady state. But I do wonder if a factor, an important part in a market like London will be this thing that when a broker decides where to place a business, open market, traditional way, let's say, versus automated or algorithmic ways, really what they're doing is a balancing act between expertise, obviously underwriting intellect, underwriting value add, also, very importantly, relationships, versus what comes through the other side of the equation, which is efficiency. So capacity, capital being connected to risk very effectively and efficiently. And it would be the broker's job to find the right balance between one and the other. You will know that I'm a great advocate for being present in the office or in person. And that's because I really believe that markets like London create the special value, the special sauce that they create in the market on the back of relationships. And those relationships are very difficult to build in any other way than being in front of each other, right? So, I encourage my teams here at Liberty, anybody I talk to in the market, to actually be here to enhance the value we create, not just for us as a company, but also as a market.
You don't necessarily have to mandate something like that because I suppose it becomes obvious if the people who are coming into the office are doing better than the people who are not coming into the office. It would seem fairly obvious that people who are ambitious, who are not coming into the office, to say, well, I better start coming in on Mondays and Fridays and every other.
Absolutely. Exactly right. Exactly right.
What about the technology side of things? And it's really interesting. Where are you seeing the best applications? Obviously, the last couple of years, AI has exploded in our consciousness. We used to talk about machine learning and other things. But probably not an interview like this. But now, since that has exploded onto all our consciousness, it's certainly a question I've been asking everyone for the last couple of years now. And I suppose if it was this time last year, you'd say, well, we've been doing some pilots. It's interesting. Now, I suppose a lot of that early experimentation is done, and you'd be able to evaluate what happened as an engineer. You can really understand what happens. Well, where have you had the best results, or most interesting results that you're going to double down, and which parts of the value chain?
So we're already experimenting with AI. We've chosen strategically that we will look at AI, at least for starters, for three main potential benefit areas. One is the augmentation of our underwriting processes.
Yeah.
The other one is the augmentation of our claims processes. And the third one is customer/client experience. And I'm going to throw in there as well, even though it's not quite so explicit, actually the experience of our own employees, how easy it is to work for Liberty. So the first steps we're taking are to assist with underwriting, to use AI to learn from our engineering information and to actually find patterns and help digest enormous volumes of information and help our underwriters get to key pieces
There's
of information.
There's nothing like getting something to read 150 inspection reports
precisely
on your behalf, because
right,
we've all read them and you used to write them, so they're all formulaic, and you can easily fall into a trap of kind of think, well, this is the same as the last one.
We haven't actually unlocked this value when we can actually do that, and then separately work similarly on the claims data set, and then with the help of artificial intelligence, find points of correlation.
Yes.
For example, risk factors that were not identified before are not present in our rating mechanisms or risk selection protocols. And then with the help of AI, all of a sudden the pattern becomes visible, and then we can adjust our methods.
It must be really interesting. And I suppose claims, I think, is so often overlooked. And of course, yeah, it's so often overlooked in the industry as a whole. But then, of course, on the technology side, it's fascinating because, of course, claims, you can really make the win on the claims. So if you had a very smart AI that was really helping to triage those claims. And
Indeed.
Say, hey, guys, okay, you've got 20 minutes before you go home. In those 20 minutes, what do I recommend? There's a new notification that you should probably look at right now, because actually you could probably notify your reinsurer straight away as well. There's always the one with the stitch in time saves 9.
Yeah, it's funny you pick that as an example, because that's one other very tangible point of experimentation for us. Exactly that. So using AI to read first notes of claims, first notes of loss, and we are using that to experiment.
Don't leave it to tomorrow, because actually you could do this right now.
Yeah, exactly right.
And so that kind of thing. There's capital as well, isn't there? In terms of, obviously, there's the reserving. There's if you can see changes in your claims patterns, if bodily injury is starting to change, you can see an evolution, particularly where you've got reasonably high volume.
Spot on.
Whiplash seems to be going up again. It's settled, and now it's not settled any. There's something you could go straight to. Again, you could look at the people who are doing the capital modelling.
Exactly right. Reserving and so on. Also, this thing that, the risk landscape, the risks of our clients are changing very quickly. So this very real thing that we can rely less and less on statistics to help us understand the risk of today, even less the risk of the future. AI could be part of the solution to sense real-time risk and indeed find the patterns that I just mentioned, or trend changes, important changes to experience, if you like, to try and understand the direction of travel of climate risk or cyber, for example.
Certainly, yeah. It's difficult to know the future, but the amount of computing power available it should ultimately narrow the margin of error.
Indeed.
So we'll be much more confident, I think, looking forwards than we have been in the past.
The million-dollar question is, with that capability in the market, we're going to see cycles that are different. You can see where I'm going with this. So if the margin of error reduced, then does that mean that we can detect a soft market earlier and react to it?
Yes.
Or indeed, as the market hardens, find that point of profitability earlier so that we don't overshoot. There's a school of thought that says that much. I'm personally not convinced, because I haven't seen any evidence that the market is any less volatile or less cyclical today.
It's difficult. It's one of those interesting ones. It's funny. And of course, I remember, when I was young, there was the old person in the office who was the old claims guy, and then he was telling us about, when there was a tariff market. And so, well, what was the point in having different insurance companies then? Well, you competed on service.
That's right.
We all had the same price, and maybe you could mess around with the commissions a bit and slightly, net down a bit more or whatever, but it wasn't really competing on price. But what we were competing on was we had great service before and after a claim, and could see that happening, particularly if you end up with a very flat pricing cycle, because everyone knows what the price is. So you're going to have to sell something else, aren't you? And say, we're better than these other people.
Yeah. And more so in the subscription market, right, where the price and the product is shared amongst competitors on any one given deal, right? So, the one point of differentiation is indeed service, and obviously portfolio risk construction and risk selection is the other.
I suppose we should talk about the market itself. How is it at the moment? How are submission flows holding up, and what's your strategy? Obviously, the market is changing.
The market is changing. Submission flows are strong.
That's a good sign. I mean, I remember coming into a really soft market. I remember walking around Lloyd's with a slipcase, and then seeing underwriters just looking at me and sort of saying, "Come over here," because they had no one queuing up to see them. It was like, here's someone with some business. Maybe we can write it. It's not that kind of market, is it?
No, not at all. We have access to business. That's not an issue. It's good to work for a company like Liberty that casts a long shadow, and we have, as I said earlier, we have recognition for the underwriting work we do and relationships and so on. So accessing business, not that much a problem. But the market is softening. I mean, it's clearly reached and maybe slightly past a point of inflection. I would stop short of saying that we are in a soft market. We're in a softening market, but I still think 2025 and maybe even if we're lucky 2026 will still be solid trading years. So we are acting accordingly. So one thing to recognize, as I alluded a second ago, we don't believe that the cycles will be any less pronounced in the future than they have been in the past. And I may be wrong, but that's our belief, just reading reading the signs. So we are preparing for a soft market in the future. And that's why we're emphasizing quite strongly our cycle management methodologies. We're measuring things that we weren't measuring before. We're also deciding beforehand what actions we will take when certain triggers get hit. And then with that, hopefully we'll be one of those players that over time have been successful over the cycles through quite simply recognizing good times or bad times before they hit you, right? So we want to be first movers. And that's something that, we're quite adamant. We don't just want to take the right actions. We want to take them early.
Because it's so hard. If everyone's fighting the last war, it's really difficult to be in a carrier that's still remediating today, for example. And now the market's already softening. You still haven't finished that remediation. Yeah. If you could have recognized that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you would have been in the best position by now. First-hand
experience tells me that even if the market is right for growth and you want to grow, if you at the same time are still remediating parts of your portfolio,
you can't, because you're still saying no.
Exactly. Right. Commercially, you will simply not be allowed to grow the way you want.
Yeah, the broker's not going to come see you. They don't want to show you the newest opportunities necessarily, are they?
That's
you
right.
won't be front of mind.
Exactly.
They're still sorting themselves out and whatever. So more specifically, where are things better?
So at the moment, our entire portfolio, thankfully, is quite healthy.
So you don't have anything that's kind of flashing red saying, well, we're going
Absolutely
to
not.
tone that down.
Thankfully, we're nowhere near anything alarming in any part of our portfolio. We're paying a lot of attention to ensure that once we start detecting signals that say tough times ahead, we detect those and act accordingly, but no, we're not there yet. On the contrary, I actually see plenty of opportunity to actually grow in areas that, as a market, again, not just us, but as a market, we could develop something of use to our clients. Cyber is a good example. Anything that may be in demand as a result of changes to the energy systems, of the enormous amounts of investment that's going into infrastructure worldwide, particularly in regions like the Middle East or parts of Europe. That has to be an opportunity for surety products, construction, energy, you name it. There's a lot of opportunity there. Many of our clients are telling us that the sort of solutions they need to unlock investment, and by that I mean risk management solutions, risk products, is simply not there. So I think there's a bit of a call to action there for us in the market to respond to. Other than that, our focus is in pursuit of our belief that differentiated performance typically emanates from good underwriting within class as opposed to product mix. So we're spending a lot of time ensuring that we, as a market begins to soften, we enhance our loss ratios versus market. And also recognize that when the time comes and the market hardens again, then the point of differentiation would be growth, not so much loss ratio. And that takes the cycle management discipline to its core component parts. Of course, the trick is the how, right? The detail of how to achieve that. And there's a lot of method that goes into having the right targets, the right measurements, and then the right actions.
It's easy to say. It's quite hard to do it, isn't it, in practice?
True. But if you look at the market and the way it behaves, even the easy parts, we could be accused of ignoring, right? And adamant we will not fall in that trap.
For example, I've had people on the podcast looking to insure new assets, wholly new assets, carbon credits being an asset, which, is going to be like gold dust at some point in 30 years' time. These are things, they are worth money today, and they're going to be an exchange-traded asset, just like anything else.
Indeed.
And they also need insurance.
Absolutely, they do. And I think London is a great place to create solutions for that kind of demand. Again, it's the subscription market by excellence.
Yeah.
And in particular, Lloyd's is a very good bed for incubation of ideas and products of the kind, right? Without necessarily betting the bank.
As the market softens, obviously one of the other ways of pre-syndicating and pre-packaging the syndication of the market is by supporting MGAs, delegated authorities, and particularly for things that are totally new, like carbon. If you want to underwrite carbon credits, you think, yes, actually an MGA is going to be a really good structure to do this to start with, because everyone can take a little watching line and we can all learn about this together. We don't know what we don't know, and we don't have all the answers so far. Obviously, we've had fantastic growth in MGAs. My theory would be one of the reasons why things have grown and they've been able to keep the profits up was perhaps when we first started in the early 90s, every time you had an MGA, you added 10 points and an extra sort of 3 months delay, another quarter delay before you get paid, before you even see the bordereau. You think, well, is there enough premium here to actually pay the claims and make a small profit for all of us? Because it's not immediately obvious. And also, would you as a carrier providing paper to that MGA really know what they're doing on your behalf? Mm-hmm. 30 years ago, it was very difficult to know. But these days, do you think with the technology, a lot of these MGAs obviously are brand new. Some more recent ones would say, hey, actually, our tech's better than yours. So we can be a virtual insurance company and you can look right through, even reinsurers can look right through and see exactly what we're underwriting almost real time.
Yeah.
Or is that what's been driving it? The fact that they're just better, there's less friction than there was, so therefore it's easier to do?
Well, it can be, and it oftentimes is, but not always. I mean, by definition, MGAs are a phenomenal gate for the syndication of niche risk or even old product, old risk, old territory with some kind of secret sauce. We are great believers in the MGA format. We are supporters of a number of MGAs. We're very selective, so we don't have large numbers. But the logic we apply is anything that we, whatever reason, we're actually not applied to in terms of our own ranks to leadership and underwriting expertise, we look to the MGA space for that expertise. But we are looking for that secret sauce, right? For that value add that we or others are unable or unwilling to create for whatever reason. There's a lot of MGA out there that's doing nothing other than replicating market standard product or access to faraway markets. Actually, we have other avenues of access to.
And as Liberty, you probably, yes, you do.
Yeah, and exactly. Oftentimes we do have boots on the ground, and so that doesn't become a viable proposition for us. I think one thing we need to watch out for in the market is that, again, there isn't always an alignment between the interests of the MGA owner, the cover holder, and those of the capital behind it. Obviously, the main incentive for the cover holder is to have volumes, whereas the market behind wants profits. So in a good market, you can satisfy both. In a market that's less healthy from a pricing perspective, then it's harder for both parties to actually get.
Is there any sign of this trend towards MGAs peaking in some sense?
I don't think we've seen the signs yet, but I think they have to. I think the writing is on the wall. The number of MGAs that have popped up in the last couple of years is, in my personal view, inordinate. So that combined with the softening market, I think, well, the softening market does what it does, right? And it actually level it all out. And so I expect that, we probably reached peak, or if not, we will soon do.
But if you add tangible value, then you can get paid for that, and that's fine.
Indeed, and you should, yeah.
Yeah, you absolutely should, yes, because you get what you pay for. That's the point, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, MGAs, and there's a reason why MGAs are prevalent in certain markets, including the London market. They are a great avenue for experimentation, but they need to come with value add.
It's really interesting what you were saying about the cycle. Again, in this softening phase of a hard market, what do you do? I mean, there's that other job as a leader to go out and kind of sort of lead from the front with the underwriters. How do you kind of prepare them for a changing market?
Well, the first thing I do is remember that I'm a little bit older than most. So I've seen a couple of market cycles, whereas others may not have done. So imprinting that confidence that says there are certain things that you do and you don't when the market is soft or hard. And then through training, conversations, and as you say, leading from the front, you lay bare what's to be achieved. I suppose
or not. Also, you're in control of the other levers, which you have incentives and you have disincentives.
Exactly right.
There's no point saying don't do silly things in the soft market and then give them a massive volume boost.
Absolutely. And that's what I mean when I say clarity of mission. So as a market softens, growth will not be an area of focus for us. Of course, we will need income. And there's an optimal point of income. Otherwise, if you completely neglect the gross line or the top line, then the expenses come and bite. But there's this thing, there's profitable income, which is what we want, and there's income for the sake of income, which is not what we want, right?
You have that view that there's always a sort of 80-20 thing anyway. There's always 80% of the portfolio that's pretty good. And, it's not necessarily looking for massive price decreases or whatever. And it's your kind of core of your profitability. And there's other 20% that sort of flies around and churns and does all sorts of things and asks for a big discount.
Yeah, exactly.
Then I suppose you can let that bit go. If you can let that bit go, but still keep the 80%, you're kind of okay.
Absolutely. So when the market is soft, it's all about the risk selection, right? So ensuring that the loss ratio differentiation I mentioned a minute ago is achieved, whereas when the market is hard, it's different. It's less emphasis on the loss ratios, more emphasis on the dollars on books. Right?
It's interesting, of course, that, yes, naturally, of course, just the way the mathematics works, of course, the expense ratio does go up a bit if you're paying underwriters not to underwrite. And the old cliche was, I don't think anyone ever actually said this. It's one of these apocryphal sayings. It's, I'll pay my underwriters to go and play golf instead of underwrite because the market's so bad. But of course, I don't think any CEO ever did that.
No, well, that would be the wrong message. I think for anybody at any time, it should feel hard because you're always trying to optimize the book one way or another.
Yes.
Right? So it's not like you sit on your hands when the market is soft, or indeed when the market is hard. It's not like you completely let go of your underwriting discipline because anything you write will be good. It doesn't work that way. It shouldn't work that way. I think the thing for us to remember is the market overall does not deliver the right level of return for capital. It's just fact. Certainly the specialty market in London has delivered, what is it, the average 99% combined over the cycles. We can't entirely rely on investment return to satisfy capital because it just won't be enough for the sort of risk we take. So there's an onus on us underwriters to deliver, a certain amount of return over the cycles. For our own purposes, we calculate that to be 92%. So we aim to achieve for our portfolio mix a 92% NCOR or better over the cycles, recognizing that sometimes we can do better, sometimes not so good. But then that's what we manage to. And then if the underwriters know what they're aiming for through loss ratio differentiation or growth, to me, that's the important part, have that clarity of mission.
Because if in aggregate the market's underperforming, then you need to outperform just to sort of do the minimum.
Exactly right. A bit of a harsh message, but if we pay underwriters to do what they do in the building, it's because we believe they can outperform market average. And to be brutally honest, market average is very accessible these days through the trackers. So if I believe that market average is what I want.
Yeah, because I suppose if you didn't believe you could beat the market, then you'd shut the whole thing down and just put so many $1 billion into this tracker. Precisely. Say, thank you very much.
Exactly right. But we don't believe that's enough.
But that wouldn't be much fun, would
exactly.
it? There would be no new products. It would be very depressing. But then there is a place for that, of course.
Completely. And we have a strong belief that trackers serve a purpose. On the one hand, they inform our decisions, not just in the portfolio side of the house, but also in the open market side of the house. Also, they give us access to premium volumes when the market is right for that kind of aspiration.
Luis, I've really enjoyed chatting. Do you think there's anything we should have spoken about that I haven't asked you about?
No, not really. Maybe I should ask you a question because I do think a lot about the evolution of the market in terms of the people in it. So I'm an underwriter at heart and I think in technical terms, but I can see how the skills and the experience needed for an effective carrier in the future, or a broker for that matter, are going to be very different to the skills of the past. So I wonder whether you have a view.
Well, I've got a view, but I'm probably coloured by, I've got a certain amount of experience because all my children have graduated in the last 3 years and 2 graduated this summer. And actually, the industry's not really hiring enough. It's clear there are not that many opportunities because any of them ended up in insurance because there weren't enough opportunities. And I really wonder where these opportunities, it's difficult because there are a lot of underwriting assistant type jobs. There are not enough entry level jobs for the amount of graduates that are out there and also the people who are genuinely looking. Because, of course, I've been whispering in their ear saying insurance is going to be really interesting, particularly when they're bilingual. I think they've got some good things going for them in a global marketplace like London. But so I would say we're talking a good talk about this, but we're probably not hiring people. We should almost be hiring people even though we don't quite know what we're going to do with them yet as a pure investment in that talent. But it's very difficult. It's easy for me to say that. But then these days, the minimum wage even is very high. So, and just that cost is going to be sort of, it's probably £50,000 just for each employee. Once you've paid for their desk and their space and then employers' national insurance and everything else, it doesn't come cheap.
Yeah, so, agreed. When you think of it, one of the most critical decisions we are making as an industry today and as leaders in the industry is who we hire, what skills we hire, because these things take time. If we start hiring today, our workforce will look a certain way a number of years down the line, right?
Yeah, and you pay for it in the long term.
That's right.
In fact, it was actually sitting here with Matthew Moore about 4 years ago. He was probably chair of the LMA. I think that was his hat. It wasn't a pure Liberty hat, but he was talking generally about talent. And he was saying, actually, yes, it is costing us because by the time people become 35, 40 and they've got that experience that we're really valuing, we could have grown those people ourselves. And we think there's a shortage. So, of course, as an industry, we're paying for that.
Indeed. Interesting times.
Yeah.
Lots of challenges ahead, but lots of opportunity as well. I think it's really, really exciting.
Yes. Hiring all my children will be a great investment, which will pay back over a very long period. But
I tried to sell the idea of insurance to both of my daughters who are adults now and professionals in their own right. Neither of them chose insurance. Their argument is that they wanted to plow their own path, and I respect that.
Oh, yeah, no. I certainly wasn't going to sort of try and use any kind of influence because I just think it would be terrible. And they had a go. Actually, they have applied for a few things, but they haven't got very far. So, yes, I think there was not a high enough volume of things for them to go to. But anyway, all is not lost.
Indeed. We'll keep fighting.
Thanks a lot, Luis. It's been really good talking to you.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, don't forget to subscribe or leave a like or a review or recommendation on whatever podcast platform you used to access this programme. These really help get the word out. Before we go, just a quick reminder that advertising slots are available here and in other places in the Voice of Insurance podcasts. Podcasting is the fastest growing medium and attracts a high quality audience of key decision makers. It's also an intimate medium where you, the listener, are right in the room with me and the interview subjects. Needless to say, that means it's a great way of getting your message out directly to an audience because you know you've got their full attention. It's also very cost effective. So get in touch with Mark at thevoiceofinsurance.com to find out how you could be speaking directly to the industry.
The Voice of Insurance is produced in association with Advantage Go. Release your underwriters to underwrite with Advantage Go's underwriting platform.
Voice of Insurance is produced by me, Mark Gagan. Music was written by Anna Gagan and produced by Carlos Gagan. Check out more podcasts and written comment pieces at www.thevoiceofinsurance.com.